Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we have ourselves a track by an act named Rita hamrakova titled 69770 in Another Universe. And if we switch over to here, this apparently features Theo of Matrix, if I'm not misunderstanding. Featuring Theo of or from Matrix. So without further ado, we're going to listen through this track from start till finish and we're going to hear what we think. So without further ado, let's do this. I wasn't actually expecting that little flitter between the sides with that synth thing.
Is your number, is your number. I will never call you up again, be chill and rest your head.
Just before we continue, I love the combination of the keys, the drums, the smoothness, the silkiness of the vocals, both in regards to the performance and the quality of the studio production. There's a lot to like here so far. Like immediately. Like everything is just nice and shimmery with the higher melodies on some of those key parts, the glistening, glimmering, and the resonances in that high frequency spectrum there. And the head voice falsetto parts there that we have with the vocals are complementing that really well. A minimal composition with a very good like supportive drum beat, but like nonetheless enjoyable. In another galaxy, I'll never set you free. I like the panning of the vocal parts, that's cool. You don't have to worry about songs and poems anymore, and somebody loving you. So are we saying that we let them go in another galaxy? Like in this reality, we let them go, so they're separated, they're apart. But in another universe, they would have done things differently to ensure that things didn't have to end that way.
And I know that everybody wants to win the game of life, and I can't afford to lose. Free, free, everyone's free, 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 everyone's free, 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 everyone's free, and I can't afford to lose. In another universe, in another galaxy, in another symmetry, I'll never set you free.
Have we got Rita's backing vocals and as in the background, by virtue obviously of being backing vocals, but have we got her backing up, I presume Theo, who's singing there? I'm trying to sort of figure out who's doing what. I think that it's a wonderful harmony of all the vocals. It's incredibly beautiful. The bass line is so subtle in there as well, especially in those like hook sections there, but just how everything kind of like floats around really prettily.
In another universe, in another galaxy, in another symmetry, I'll never set you free. Free, free, everyone's free, 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 everyone's free.
and I can't afford to lose. That's interesting. That's interesting. That was an interesting sort of like spin on it. Within the game of life, everyone wants to win, but I can't afford to lose. Because this is my conclusion of my review of this track by Rita Hamrakova, featuring Theo, titled 69770 in Another Universe. What do I think this song is about? I think it's about someone who is realizing how much this person means to them, and maybe they thought that things were going to be better without the person, but they've realized just how much they need that person to win at life, you know. And maybe they can't afford to be without that person because they feel like they've lost by not having them in their life. And they're just looking desperately for like another symmetry, like another likewise scenario and another sort of like possibility where things would be better. They're desperate for that situation, or they're dreaming of it. Because this song kind of sounds like a dream, which is in part helped by the really floaty, kind of caring vocals that just, they're wonderful. I love the tone and texture. They're very soft and caring and loving and gentle, and I think that works well for the story that we're telling here. I think if there were any aggressive textures like vocal fry or whatever, it wouldn't have made sense. The head and chest voice is fantastic. The vocal technique is great. There were falsetto sections as well, which sounded absolutely pristine. And I think that while there might have been like a little bit of like effects on the voice, maybe just to like make some of the sort of transitions a bit more smooth, I think it didn't take away from the authenticity of the performance. I think as a stylistic choice, it makes a lot of sense, especially with some of the synthetic sort of like elements, as well as like the keys and everything like that, and the drum samples. I think that it was a smart move to have that. So the vocals are absolutely ace, and the production in general was great. I'm really stoked with that. I think that the vocals were done well and match well with the story. The song at 2 to 4 minutes is within that 2 to 4 minute sweet spot. The theme, you know, like with the basically you had the keys, you had the bass line at the bottom, and then you had the drums, and you didn't have too many other textures unless there were occasional sort of like floaty bits there, like little pads or synth pads in the background, or other sort of like sequences there that were kind of as sub layers to everything else going on. The mix was phenomenal. The studio production is sensational. I'm so stoked with that. But I think that the beauty of this track was that we had that minimalism there that allowed the vocals to shine and be the focal point, but there was enough happening within the motif, the theme itself, to really sort of like keep it interesting for that 3.5 minutes, where like if you have less going on per instrument, and a lot of songs that are out there nowadays because the beat's good, but then you can't loop it enough because it doesn't keep the listener within that world there. I think you not only need to have like a similar sort of approach to like the tone and textures between the vocals and the theme, you know, like similar harmonies and melodies interlocking with one another, but then what you also need to have is like the accompaniment be just as interesting as the vocals, is what I'm trying to say. I think that the chord progressions that we had there, these extensions were emotionally complex as well, which matched well with the story and what the singer was going through. I think that we knew not to have too much of everything all the time. We'd go away with like the bass sometimes and then bring it back in. The drums, if they were there, they were meant to drive the beat forward, but we also had moments where the drums weren't there to kind of allow for like a more of a standstill, as if we were floating in the ether trying to sort of figure out which universe it was that would be able to see that person again, or alternate reality. And I just think in general, the motif was soothing. It was like you were in space exploring the possibilities, which made sense with the universe and symmetry and alternate reality, etc. So the theme, great choice of instruments with the keys, pretty song that was kind of misty and kind of like mystical. And all the various parts of the composition made sense with the story and the vocals. So in effect, I think this was an incredibly effective. It's a case where the songwriting was incredibly effective. I think there weren't any weak points in there. I don't think they could have added more due to the complexity of the accompaniment and arrangement, and I think they absolutely smashed it. The studio recording, mixing, and mastering, you know, the drum samples that were used were fantastic. They were nice and sharp, not sharp. They cut into the mix, but in a way where you could just hear them and they were out. They didn't cut at you. What I mean is that they had presence, in the same way that the keys maybe were a little bit sort of more filtered, so they had a sort of a smoother kind of like, how do I spoke? They flowed like water basically around the headphones. It was like you were being coated in these wonderful articulations, these various intervals and arpeggios and stuff like that. I think that contrast between the approaches of the various attacks of the different instruments is a smart idea. I mean, the bass is very subtle as well. The bass guitar kind of like with that smoothness in its tone there, kind of having less of an attack or a grunt and more of a kind of like being there as a foundation and a keystone, with the vocals nicely filtered on top with a bit of effects just to make them a little more sort of like pristine and kind of like present in the mix there. Things were nicely notched in the frequency spectrum there, so everything had a place there and you could tell what everything was and what was going on. It was nice and wide in the stereo field, so that was fantastic. That was ace as well. The leveling and overall with the track was phenomenal. There was not a single thing that could have been done to improve it, I think. And that is not something I say often, by the way. There's always usually something, but I don't think you could have really done better than this with the song, with the ingredients that you had there. There was automation as well of the vocals from side to side, like a stereo delay, or maybe it was deliberate double tracks on either side, which I think was smart, because that just adds interest. The listener's like, oh, it's on this side and on this side, you know? And, you know, there was dynamic range to this as well, which I appreciate. It wasn't pumping on the headphones. It wasn't trying to sort of like cut you down. But the track was still nice and loud without pumping, so the limiting compression was good. I mean, yeah, really positive review, I suppose. This is my review of 69770 and Another Universe by Rita Hamrakova, featuring Theo. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do check out the various social medias and the YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on. And just before I go, as I understand it, all the proceeds are from the song are going towards the war in Ukraine, so I think that's a fantastic cause as well. So if you want to support this artist, obviously please do, and I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.